and take care of the person that's been damaged so that they're fine. But does that take $100 million? Some of those lawsuits are just crazy.
Well, if you look at some of the insurance that the doctors have to carry, it's outrageous how much it costs them. It's almost not worth it anymore.
Exactly. Find a way to cut down on paperwork. And I like to go back. I went through probably a 10-year stint in my life where I did not have medical coverage, right? And so I ended up finding a doctor who did not take insurance at all. You paid check, cash, or credit card. She took those. And she was a good doc. She actually was a surgeon from St. Joe.
A whole lot different price, wasn't it?
And God bless her, Dr. Jean Dunnigan. She was just the most fabulous doctor I have ever had, bar none. And that takes my doctor as a kid. Sorry, Dr. Zako. You were a good doctor, but Dr. Jean Dunnigan was amazing. She spent time with you, and I remember going in one time for a shoulder. I had a bad torn rotator or something was going on with my shoulder, and I had a sinus infection, right? And I'm one of those guys who waits until it's all wrapped up before I actually drag myself into the doctor, and she spent time with me. And, she gave me my prescriptions right there. She gave me a shot in my shoulder and spent all that time with me, and it was $75 cash.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And some people, $75, Well, listen, when you have an insurance plan in your car, that doesn't cover your oil changes, baby. You know what I mean? Some of these things, I think we need to take a look at it. And maybe these small doctors, your kid's got a cold again, you're going to take them to the doctor. It's a cold. Why are you even going to the doctor? But you know what? Pay cash for those things, and maybe it's work. Dr. Dunnigan had a thriving business, and she was done with it. She said all the time she saved on paperwork, it's what made it possible for her to stay in business.
Well, and the compliance issues are probably 10 times worse now.
Yeah, and it's just crazy. When you see the files and the paperwork and all the stuff, and now stuff comes in, you get a paper that says this is not a bill. So you're sending me something, why don't you just send it all with the bill and we'll be done with it? Don't send me a piece of paper 2 weeks before you send the bill that explains it. You know what I mean? Send it all at once. Save the postage, for crying out loud. But it's crazy. And so I think the Republicans, if they do it right, and I encourage the Democrats, gosh darn it, I hope Debbie Stabenow, if you're listening, Gary Peters, if you're listening out there, for God's sake, stop playing partisan politics. Work with the Republicans. If there are things you want in there, because I think the Republicans are fine with keeping those kids until they're age 26, right?
I hadn't heard that part. I'm not sure about that.
I think they are. Pre-existing conditions, the Republicans know that's an issue as well.
Yeah.
So it's not like the Republicans want to screw millions of people over. They just want something that makes sense and is sustainable.
Well, Trump flat out said there are certain parts of it that he wants to keep because they're good. But.
Because let's face it, all these young millennials, as a young man, you don't get sick. You don't go to the doctor. Even if you are sick, you don't go to the doctor. You're not costing anything. Yeah. But you got to make it small enough that they're still going to put something in. $100 a month, not these $1,500 a month payments are just crazy.
They're not going to use it anyway, so that's all going to pay for everybody else.
So it's got to be small enough to say yes, and it's the other thing is the catastrophic. And some people, and I'm fine spending $5,000 a year on my medical costs, out of pocket, whatever. But I want a policy that's going to cover the catastrophic thing. If I get cancer, if I'm in a car wreck, if my leg goes bad or my back goes bad, you know what I mean? Something that's not going to turn me into a poor person and I lose everything, Get a catastrophic plan that covers it. So there are things that can be done. And the Democrats, shame on them because they didn't do it. They didn't listen to any of those options when they jammed through Obamacare.
Nobody was allowed to read it.
Nobody was allowed to read it.
That told you something was wrong right there. Yeah. They knew what was coming.
That's exactly right. So, anyways, we got through that. Let's talk about some of the confirmations because we're almost out of time at this point. I wanted to talk to, do we have that track, Derek, of Marco Rubio? Is it on there? I might have lost it even. That's a bummer. Marco Rubio went after Rex Tillerson. And I had my own reservations about Rex Tillerson when putting it on, because I kind of have that feeling when I look at oil people. Right. It's the oil guys. Don't put the oil guy in charge of anything. Oh, it is. We do have it. It's track 7, Derek. You got it? This is Marco Rubio, who's a Republican, right? Allegedly. Yeah. A rhino Republican, going after Rex Tillerson. And part of me thought, well, he's still mad at Donald Trump, and that's why he's kind of grilling. But it's these guys that are trying to stoke up the rhetoric against Russia. Vladimir Putin is a rotten individual. He's a power-hungry madman, whatever you want to call him. But there's no sense trying to start a war with him. What are you trying to do?
Yeah.
Yeah. Go ahead and play track 7, Derek. This is Marco Rubio grilling Rex Tillerson.
Is Vladimir Putin a war criminal?
I would not use that term.
Well, let me describe the situation in Aleppo, and perhaps that will help you reach that conclusion. In Aleppo, Mr. Putin has directed his military to conduct a devastating campaign. He's targeted schools, markets, not just assisted the Syrians in doing it. His military has targeted schools and markets and other civilian infrastructure. It's resulted in the death of thousands of civilians. This is not the first time Mr. Putin is involved in campaigns of this kind. Back when he was just appointed prime minister before he was elected, and I'm sure you're aware of that period of time, there was a series of bombings, and they blamed it on the Chechens. And Mr. Putin personally said that he would punish them, and so he ordered the Air Force to bomb the Chechen capital of Grozny. They used Scud missiles to hit hospitals, the city's main outdoor market, packed with shoppers. 137 people died instantly. They used thermobaric and fuel-air explosive bombs. These are the bombs that ignite, and they burn the air breathed in by people who are hiding in basements. They used cluster munitions. He used battlefield weapons against civilians. And when it was all said and done, an estimated 300,000 civilians were killed, and the city was completely destroyed. By the way, there's credible body of reporting, open source and other, that this was all those bombings were part of a black flag operation on the part of the FSB. And if you want to know the motivation, here's what it is. Putin's approval ratings before the attacks against the Chechens was at 31%. By mid-August of that year, it was at 78% in just 3 months. So based on all this information and what's publicly in the record about what's happened
All right,
in
so
the Russian military.
Let's cut that, Derek, because we're almost out of time. Here's what bothers me about Marco Rubio. The U.S. has hit hospitals before, has hit schools before. Why? Because that's where ISIS hides.
Yeah,
right?
They do that. They're
and it's because of the war that's escalated in Syria due to McCain, Rubio, and Graham selling arms to these people that's caused this action turn into a giant civil war and why Aleppo's been destroyed. So Mr. Rubio takes fair blame for a lot of that.
Sure he does.
And to call Putin a war criminal, call yourself, Mr. Rubio, a war criminal.
Yeah, all behind the scenes.
All right, Dave, thanks for coming in.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
We'll get you on again. Sounds great. All right, until next week, go to thedailydrift.com, stay informed, and stay educated. See you next week.